Welcome back. During break, I had a few interesting things. But we have to transition to the conversation. This is an important week for Deputy President Gachagua. Yesterday, he spent some time in Embu County. It was a prayer service and a celebration that was also expected to also host the president, who didn't attend. But first, let's listen to the Deputy President, what he said.
Yale yote ambayo inaendelea Kenya msijali. Si ndio? Si iko Mungu mbinguni? Sisi ni Wakristo na tunamwamini Mwenyezi Mungu. Na Mungu atafanya mapenzi yake. Binadamu wanaweza panga mambo mingi, lakini iko Mungu mbinguni. Muendelee kutuombea. Muendelee kuombea nchi yetu. Lakini sisi tuna imani kubwa sana na mahakama zetu. Our judiciary is very professional, and I have no doubt in my mind that our eminent judges will protect and uphold the Constitution. Sijui kama tawezekana tulichaguliwa na hii watu yote tufukuzwe na watu wachache. Hiyo ni haki kweli watu wa Embu? Kwa hivyo watu wa Embu mlichagua mimi na President William Ruto, mkatupatia kura zenu zote. Tungeuliza uamuzi wa raia uheshimike. Kwa sababu raia wanapiga kura miaka 5. Na ni mzuri kuheshimu uamuzi wa nini? Irrespective ya ile itatokea, nataka kuuliza amani katika hii Embu, katika Mlima Kenya, katika Kenya nzima. Sisi tuko na nchi ya Kenya, hatuna nchi nyingine. Na hii nchi ni yetu. Sisi tupendane, tukue na amani, tukiendelea kufanya kazi zetu. Kwa sababu hiyo ndio mambo ile muhimu.
So the Deputy President says, tuna imani na mahakama. I believe he means ana imani na mahakama. Let's listen to what the President said. He didn't attend that Embu event, but had a reason why he was at AIC Milimani.
The senior pastor told me that there had been sent an invitation for this celebration. I told him I'm going to struggle because it wasn't in my diary. My diary was committed somewhere else. I've had to negotiate with people in other places because I didn't want to miss this celebration. All right. So ideally, he should have been at the same event with the Deputy President, but he has given the explanation. Senator Manzo, yes. What exactly did Gachagua do now that you're impeaching him?
There's no reason to impeach Rigathi Gachagua. It is politics initiated by very young politicians, and what happened in Parliament, unfortunately, my good professor is here. What happened in Parliament, there was lynching, public mob justice against the Deputy President, without looking at the full consideration of the country. Last weekend, he tendered an apology. Might he have offended anyone in his duties? And you see, when you seek forgiveness, then the Bible says, those who don't forgive will never be forgiven also by God himself. And that's why in the Lord's Prayer, and I don't know why we keep on saying it as politicians, you forgive others so that you may also be forgiven. So there's no need. And that is so founded into, you know, if you have to hold society together, then forgiveness has to be very key. And Jesus was asked, how many times then shall I forgive? And he said, so many times in a day. So many times in a day, 77 times, so many. And therefore, if one cannot be forgiven, then you can never hold the society together. That's why you saw the events in Nakuru, where the president's speech would not be read before the public. The last time that was seen was during the J.M. Kariuki's funeral, when the late Nyachai attended to read the speech of the president at the J.M. Kariuki's funeral, and he was forced to eat it by the people. That is what happens when you refuse to forgive. Parliament has refused to forgive. I heard the arguments in the National Assembly of Otiende and Kaluma that Kufa and Dereva Kufa, you know, Makanga, there are Kenyans in that bus. There are no Kenyans in that bus. That bus is only carrying members of Parliament. It abandoned Kenyans You know, those are in the matatu industry. Matatus arrive at a stage, and when they find others there, they abandon those people and they rush. And this matatu of Kufa Dereva, Kufa Makanga, has only members of parliament. It doesn't have the public. So if the Dereva and the Makanga crash, they will crash with the members of parliament, but not Kenyans.
When you said that mob justice without full consideration of the country, there is a report that was tabled about public participation that showed in quantifiable terms, 65% was supporting the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua. What do you say about that?
Is that what you saw with the public? That public participation report is fake. I want to give you the case in Makueni. There was no public participation in Kibwezi West for the honor of the mover of the motion. Even when the court said go to the constituencies. Whatever was done at the county in Makueni, that was conducted by the county commissioner with the guns. And therefore, that's not public participation.
Public participation by county commissioner, what do you...
Yes, the county commissioner is the one who eventually took control of the venue and was allowing one person to vote and another one. And all the reports which came from Makueni constituencies, they are false reports. And therefore, subsequently, the whole public participation report of the House is not the public participation report of the people. The real public participation report of the people is say 73% of Kenyans are not happy with the way President Ruto is handling his affairs and the way the country is moving. And therefore, Parliament has failed in its job. Parliament was impeached by the people of Kenya on 25th June. No one has faith in Parliament. And I can assure you,
why are you still in office?
What members of Parliament are doing to Rigathi Gachagua, they will also be done the same. You have seen now, members of Parliament can't have a beer. You are being chased away from a bar and be told whatever you are taking, we are going to pay. Kenyans should ask, members of Parliament should ask themselves why this is happening. It should not be by force. Let them do to Gachagua what they want to do to Gachagua. It will be done to them by the people of Kenya.
If Parliament was impeached on June 25th, what are you doing in Parliament?
Myself?
Yes.
I'm in the Senate for that time. It is the National Assembly which was impeached. They were running away from their own people electorate. They were so scared of the people. Now, this week, it is Senate on trial.
Senate on trial, you say?
Senate is on trial. This week is not Gachagua on trial.
Okay. I'll get back to you. Deputy Speaker, allow me to get to you because he questions the public participation report that was tabled by Minority Whip Millie Odhiambo that would appear to be what parliamentary staff found from the ground. How do you explain that?
I think it is not his Senator Manzo's place to question whether the public participation met the constitutional threshold. I think that is an issue that can be debated in a court of law. Mm-hmm. And it is not for anyone, not the judiciary, not the Senate, to question the proceedings that happened in Parliament. I think Parliament did its job within the law and has transmitted its findings to the Senate, and the Senate would have an opportunity to interrogate it as provided in the Constitution.
Right.
So let us not make other rules that are not there. And I just want to respond to the issue where he's saying that that this is a shambolic or it is a fake impeachment and so on. But let me just use just two examples. And this I want to use the most basic example. In anybody who is a human resource practitioner will tell you that when a person is publicly disrespectful of their senior at their place of employment, that is gross misconduct. It is insubordination. And you will see in all decisions made by disciplinary committees in HR practice, confirmed by the Employment and Labor Court, you will see that in cases like that, the case of summary dismissal has been upheld. So this is basic rules
but usually
in the workplace. No, this is basic rules in the workplace. And the workplace, hold on a minute, the workplace will normally have their HR manual, which will tell you the process, how it's done. You get the first warning, notice to show cause, and so on. In this case, our HR manual for the president and deputy president and cabinet secretaries is provided in the Constitution. So we are following what the Constitution provides. So you cannot now create a new Constitution by yourself and saying there should be warnings. There is no provision for a warning in the case of the president or the deputy president. It's clearly laid out in our Constitution, and it says they may be impeached on the following grounds, and that is set out. So they may be removed from office. How did parliamentarians know that the deputy president was insubordinating the president? I think I can say, let me speak for myself on one of them. If you remember, and I think I spoke after the Githurai meeting, which was public, and you can play it because you played it a lot, where the deputy president presided over two things he did. One was Githurai, where he presided over a meeting in which there were statements like, Gachagua aendelee ama asiendelee, Gachagua asiuziwe uoga, Ruto amekoniwa na Wamerikoni wa Kenya, amepora Kenya, na Ruto must go, Ruto is a one-term president. Just presiding over a meeting where chants are being made against your president, whom you are his deputy, is the definition of gross misconduct. High-level insubordination. You cannot be leading a campaign against a person whom you deputize. If you already feel that way towards that person, then you must resign. The issue of collective responsibility, which is provided in Article 153. Anybody who sits in cabinet first has taken an oath of secrecy. They must not divulge to the public things that have been discussed in cabinet. And most importantly, even if they did not agree with the rest of the cabinet during the discussions on a matter, once it has been decided by majority of the members of cabinet, then you have collective responsibility and you cannot go against it. So when the deputy president was in Mombasa, one, he first was committed gross misconduct by speaking after his boss at the time when the country was facing a crisis, and instead of being part of the solution to try and help calm the country, he then makes his own statement by himself in total disregard and insubordinating his own boss. He, in that one, distanced himself from the finance bill. The finance bill, first, is a policy document of the cabinet. He was part of that cabinet. So if he did not agree with the rest of the members of the cabinet, then the thing you must do is resign, then criticize it on your outside. Okay. But you can't be you can't have your cake and eat it. And so just let me, because I think so people say don't say shambolic. So just on those three items alone, it is important that the public know that even our courts have held many times that courts do not make decisions in futility. So the court cannot force two people who cannot work together, and that the division is so sharp to be able to work together, because they will not be able to supervise. Just the way our courts do not say that we are not issuing a divorce decree because the two of you must remain together, because they're not able to supervise and ensure that the two live together properly. So this is a very clear case. And on the issue of apology, which he has mentioned, and you have quoted the Bible, then I think you should read the rest of the Bible. First of all, when you seek forgiveness, you must confess the sin. He did not confess the sin. He said, if I said that, confess the sin and say, I was wrong when I went to make a parallel press statement after the president spoke. That was wrong of me, and I apologize for it. Then you go and say, I was part of the chants against my president and campaigning against him and saying Ruto must go. And when you say Ruto must go, when you're a deputy president, how do you expect him to go except by unlawful means, which amounts to treason? No. Because the only lawful means of removing a head of state is either by an impeachment process or through an election.
All right, Deputy Speaker, I'll get back to you. Okili Okach, let's listen to some of the sentiments that were on the floor of the National Assembly that are slightly outside what was on the impeachment motion.
For there to be integrity in the political governance of our country, Rigathi Gachagua must.
He has been attacking women, and especially members of parliament, me and others included.
Kwa mfano, aliita mmoja wetu Mheshimiwa Jematia na kumuita malaya. Unapoita mwanamke yoyote malaya, umeita wamama wote wa Kenya malaya.
I humbled myself and requested and asked the Deputy President to intervene so that those houses, Mr. Speaker, a parcel of 4,000 acres, 325 acres, I requested him to have the 300 acres where the houses were seated, to have those people even pay to Portland. But the names he called me, Mr. Speaker, I cannot call them here.
He went ahead to refer to the members of parliament from Mount Kenya region as Gakonia and Kunda Gotome and Komereras, Honorable Speaker. That is not acceptable, Honorable Speaker.
The Deputy President on that occasion did stand up and tell the President to our face that he had come down to get him from the Nyanza tour that we were undertaking, and that he had no business staying for too long in Nyanza. I looked at him and I wondered what was the problem with his compos mentis. In other words, was he of sound mind?
If there is no other reason that has brought us here, Honorable Speaker, it is to protect the family that is being disinherited of their property under coercion, blackmail, and threats.
No, the former Deputy President of Kenya should know that when you touch anything of the orphans, it is not Kenya Kwanza, it is not Azimio, but it is God Almighty that will pull the fire on you.
If the Deputy President had been quiet, he would have carried many people in this house. But he did not tame the tongue.
Now, it's important to note that majority of those sentiments were not in the impeachment motion. So is this a political process, or is it based on facts? What's going on, and what must Senate do? Because they seize the House that tries the impeachment.
Yes, Gituku, now that is where the law comes in. And the law and our Constitution is very clear that as much as impeachment is a political process, it must conform to the law and to the fair administrative actions that are required. So to that extent, it's quite sad that whoever crafted this particular process of the removal of the Deputy President may have, by that alone, gifted the Deputy President orders that he will receive in court, just by that process alone. Why do I say so? What you have already had is a clear indication that the first process, that is the trigger process, is already flawed. So that by the time you want to say that this trial is reaching the Senate, it must be anchored on a proper legal foundation. The moment the motion that is being discussed is actually set aside and other aspects outside the motion are actually being discussed and lead to a decision by the National Assembly, that by itself, you don't need to go further, is already a problem. So by allowing that alone, and my sister sits in that seat of the Speaker, that is already a problem, because that's where the Speaker needed to intervene. But even as we speak about that, Sam, the Speaker, who is supposed to be the neutral arbiter there, is already part and parcel of the accusers. And not only the Speaker, because even if the Speaker would have resigned, or not resigned, would have actually given way to the Deputy Speaker, the Deputy Speaker is actually also in that choir of attacking or making that decision. So it becomes very difficult for you to say that someone will get what we call a fair hearing at that part, as much as it's not a hearing, a fair position, because he's going to defend himself there. That again becomes a problem. And the reason I tell you that is because fair administration is very important. My sister here had challenges in 2013 when she actually was at the helm of the judiciary in terms of the registrar of the judiciary. And she was hounded out of office for the same reason she's saying, in subordination and all that. And we were there to support and say, this is wrong. And let me tell you, none other than the Supreme Court supported her and said, you did not give her a right to fair hearing. So even if, and I take great exceptions to a lot of things that the Deputy President has been saying, has been, but you give the devil his due. And the moment you fall short of that glory, let me tell you, it's all for naught. when you talk about the aspect of now the impeachment motion, the impeachment motion is supposed to be grounded on only 3 grounds: gross violation of the Constitution or any other law, serious belief that someone has committed a crime under national law or international law, and underline the word serious, not a joke. Then gross misconduct, gross misconduct. The moment you, and that is why I think my sister side should be very careful, because what is happening here, it is not an impeachment of the deputy president alone. It is actually an impeachment of the presidency. And the reason for that, look at all these allegations. If it's an issue of amassing wealth, none other than the former President Uhuru Kenyatta said and accused the current president of that, and even said there must be investigations. Was it done? It wasn't done. Now, when it comes to all these utterances of shares, the deputy president, I think he has a very good legal team behind him. He's actually, countered it by exactly what the president has also done or said. So to a large extent...
But does that help his case? Because he's the one...
It really helps his case. It really helps his case.
In court.
Let me tell you...
Eventually, courts will send him back.
Let me tell you why it helps his case. The impeachment process was not anchored to deal with squabbles or to discriminate against an individual. The moment you are saying you cannot be blind, that you can see these utterances from this person is okay, yet the boss is actually saying the same, yet you say you are blind. Impeachment processes were not supposed to come to resolve the issues between a governor and a deputy governor or squabbles between a president and a deputy president. The reason for that is because impeachment processes are so serious that the consequences is a life sentence. Even a person who is convicted of murder does not get death or even a life sentence nowadays. You can actually be given time. But impeachment process means it's the end. So it cannot be that things come and you joke with that process. A very good example also why there is a problem with this process is the public participation. The Supreme Court has rendered itself in the BAT case, and that is the grand norm, that in terms of the aspect of public participation, it is so important that saving money or time in itself does not justify inadequate opportunities for public participation. Look at the public participation that has happened. You find that it is Parliament or parliamentary staff that were actually heading this. You find that in terms of the, once the court said it goes to the constituencies, there are many constituencies which did not conduct it. But over and above that, it was the government administrative leadership that actually took center stage. Then they are the same people who come and analyze and tell you these are the results. You become, and remember the head of parliament or the leadership of parliament has already taken a position. There is nothing independent on that.
So ideally, who should conduct that public participation?
That's why I'm saying the problem started with the leadership of parliament taking a position. That is why, because ideally they should do it, but they actually decided that they have taken a position. It actually mars that and poisons the environment from the word go. Let me tell you, in many instances, we have, like Law Society of Kenya, we have actually delegated some aspects and we give it to IEBC. With or without commissioners, the Secretariat does that, and effectively and efficiently. And because, not because you do not trust you will do a good job, but because you are saying, let justice not only be done, but be seen to be done. That the process itself, we want to be so fair that let there be no dosari in this process. Such that you don't give Rigathi Gachagua a chance to challenge this matter in court. But right now, he has a whole field of reasons to challenge this matter. And let me tell you, the problem is, and I like Moses Kuria when he said, when you start a fight, be sure you are going to finish it. If you start this fight and you don't finish it, it will be a very big problem. It will be like that snake that you hit but you didn't kill. It will hound you.
Wakili, Dr. Komolo, I might have asked you this question last week, but let me just ask you for the sake of the conversation. That so Senate will have its day, and of course members of the National Assembly will, and the Deputy President will. As they are trying this impeachment, what exactly are they looking at? Because the vote at the National Assembly was overwhelming, 281 corrected to 282 later. Yet, even the Senate is comprised of politicians? What are they trying?
Look, the good thing about this process, Sam, is that finally we have a system where there's what you may call intra-checks within Parliament, where the Senate now checks the National Assembly in terms of motions that came from them, in this case impeachment, and then how to process in a manner that meets the threshold that I suspect the Constitution was designed to achieve. In this particular case, Parliament has done its job. That is to impeach. Whether it was procedural or not, there are two other layers to check it. First the Senate, and then finally the courts. What I expect senators to do is to restore their independence, particularly because this is a career-changing motion, and this is the first time they're handling it. They're used to handling these ones for governors, but you know most of them have failed, including being overturned by courts once the Senate has impeached a governor.
Right.
So in this particular case, since it is of serious national importance, I expect them to go to the grounds as outlined in the Constitution that Mr. Okache has just talked about, and look at this very, very objectively. Not taking sides at all, and I'm happy they don't look like they've taken public stand, at least not to the extent that the National Assembly did in public view. So I expect the team to look at, is there a real gross violation, a serious violation of law, national or international law? Is there gross misconduct? And you look at it against the 11 charges that the National Assembly brought. All these other issues are very important, I think, particularly issues about how he might have handled women and all that, but they were not in the motion. So they are secondary. They are meant to inflame things. And it's obvious that, that the Deputy President, and it's all over the media today, that the Deputy President may have mishandled his politics in terms of how he's related with his colleagues, both at the National Assembly and the Senate and even the Presidency. And some member of Parliament was sharing with me specific things over the weekend that I will not say here. But those are not the charges that are before the Senate. And I think that at the end of the day, we also need to give the devil his due. That is, even if he's impeached at the National Assembly, then you allow courts to also process this based on benchmarks already set. And the benchmarks already set will go into issues of procedure and issues of substance. You know, Sam, I didn't understand the hurry to impeach him within 2 weeks, because the National Assembly is not time-bound. The Senate is time-bound. In terms of, I think you have to process... No,
I thought there's, in the standing orders, there's a 7-day...
No, the entire process of starting it, you know, the conversation started a long time ago. Yeah. Then they needed to prepare better. Why do this public participation within a day? But
can you conduct public participation before you...
The matter can only start... Time starts running from the time the motion... So there might have been discussions about the behavior of the Deputy President, but the motion only came on the day that Honorable Mutuse tabled it in Parliament.
Not a problem. The Parliament also has several lawyers who are very smart, who have known how impeachment processes have failed, primarily because processes were not followed to the letter. For example, Mr. Okache said something very important that we do at the Law Society. We normally involve LSK to do some, IBC to do some parts of our work, particularly elections and all this. I think IBC could have done better public participation than the charade that was done.
Are you saying you can actually conduct public participation way before you present the motion?
No, you can prepare for it. You can create infrastructure to prepare for it. You can anticipate court decision, because the ones at the constituency was pursuant to decision, I think, by the judge in Kerugoya. You can prepare for it so that it doesn't then become a ground for challenging the decision at the High Court, because that is already going to happen. So having said that, I think the Senate should just restore confidence that the people of Kenya expect in a National Assembly and the Senate by making the process as objective as possible, by making the process as participatory as possible.
Right.
And importantly, you know, most of us don't have a lot of faith in the political process in Kenya, but I think that it is important that the senators, perhaps for the first time, don't follow party lines, because the National Assembly largely went through party lines, so that they exercise independent mind as senators. As we speak, I don't think you and I are confident enough that they will not be whipped along party lines. And so, from the look of things, I think the Deputy President's chances are in courts as opposed to...
Say that again?
For the reason of the history that I've just given,
yep.
I don't think the Deputy President has chance in political process. He just has chance probably in the courts.
Okay.
And they better prepare for that.
Now, there are those that argue that Article 145 of the Constitution does not see a situation where an impeached president or deputy president seeks reprieve in courts. That because 145(7), if at least 2/3 of all members of the Senate vote to uphold any impeachment charge, the president shall cease to hold office.
There are two arguments around that. There are those who think that impeachment process ends at the Court of Appeal, and that means that once they vote, I think on Thursday or Friday, that's the end of the story, and the president can nominate...
you mean at the Senate?
At the Senate, yes. The president can nominate another person, and then it goes through the process that is envisaged in the Constitution. I take a different view. I think that High Court has supervisory jurisdiction over the process of impeachment of deputy president, and it is already obvious that they're planning to go there. And I don't see that it is, from my reading of the Constitution, it's not black and white that the process of impeachment was designed for deputy president to end at the Senate.
Okay. What did you want to say, Wakili?
Yes, on that, I don't know the logic behind that reasoning, because even if you look at the same provisions for removal of a county governor, Article 181, 182, it does not talk about you have to go to court. But courts have actually been seized of these matters, and no one has ever challenged that on this ground. So when it comes to the removal of a deputy president or a president, Article 159 is very clear that courts are actually clothed with jurisdiction to deal with this. So that is a non-starter argument, and it will fall flat on the face of it. But as in 1 minute, one thing that I wanted to indicate on the aspect of insubordination, do you know, history, we should not forget history very fast. None other than the current president, when he was deputy, spoke the same words against his boss's decisions, and Gladys Bosholei was there. I never saw her fashioning a motion of impeachment or advising her boss at that time that this is impeachable, it is wrong. And if she did, maybe she can tell us. But no one saw any evil there. So it cannot then be at the same time you actually then now say these same acts are a problem. But
again, Wakili, how does that help Gachagua?
Yes. It helps Gachagua because I've told you, impeachment motions are not supposed to be dealing with bedroom squabbles. Impeachment motions especially to the position of a deputy president or a county governor, is supposed to be something that, you know, that is so serious that it actually enrages the nation itself to a point that you actually have, it's not tenable for you to hold an office. But the moment it is used that the issue of shares, you said it last year, it is now being indicated today. Does it become impeachable today when you have fallen, you are not in the same good books with your president? When last year it was okay. Does any act that happened, these issues of the properties, did he acquire those properties last month? They were acquired. Let me tell you, the position within which this motion was drafted can only have been drafted by National Intelligence Assistance. So it tells you that
Why do you say that?
Look, it is, you know, these are facts, and you can look at them.
So how do you say that?
That is true.
Allow me to say this,
Sorry, Deputy Speaker, we're losing a very important point here. How do you know that it's a National Intelligence Service Assistance that wrote the motion?
Let me tell you something. There is a case of the current Deputy Chief Justice, where it was indicated that fruits of a forbidden tree cannot then form part of any accusations. You are being told of issues which are actually, you are being told about private property that he acquired, how that came to the knowledge of this motion mover has not been indicated. And more importantly, it is even not, most of them are not factual. That's the problem. And the Deputy President has indicated so. You are being told of other issues which in terms of the allegations against the Deputy President, in terms of the family aspects, whereby you are being told that the family itself has an issue. You do not have an affidavit from any of these members of the family having an issue. You are being told of this insubordination, Yet, and the complainant here should be who? None other than the president. Has the president come out, even in church, and now indicated, I am not happy and I want this person to be impeached? Okay. There's no affidavit. So the principal complainant is not even there in this case.
Okay. Deputy Speaker.
Okay, let me just say there's a lot of things that are not accurate, factually accurate here. First of all, when Council here and Daktari said that we should have outsourced the public participation to IEBC, this was not an election. I know the LSK elections are outsourced to IEBC. So remember, it was public participation and not an election. And public participation has been conducted by Parliament. All the time, all committees are supported by parliamentary staff. So you're creating a new rule for Parliament, unless you suggest that we change our standing orders. But as of now, we did it accurately within that. And then also, remember, the story you're selling here, it's like, we must prove all 11 charges. By the way, one ground is sufficient to make a successful impeachment. And then,
so, but that applies to the Senate, not the National Assembly.
Sorry?
That applies to the Senate.
No, even the National Assembly.
Even the
National Assembly. So let's...
sorry, just before carry on. At the National Assembly, there was no voting on each of the allegations. It was
no,
just
there was
no.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No. The issue is that you have several grounds.
Yeah.
Even one ground is sufficient. There were many members who were persuaded on, let's say, 6 grounds, 7 grounds, and so on. But holistically, they said this guy has committed sufficient, failures.
Your standing orders do not require you to vote on each ground.
Yes, it doesn't. And then I also want to just talk about the issue that, again, for a lawyer to say, I can't imagine a lawyer going to court and saying, my client killed someone, but you know what, he's okay because his colleague also killed somebody. That has never been a defense. The impeachment motion is against Rigathi Gachagua. It is not against William Ruto. And if nobody brought an impeachment motion at that time against William Ruto, you cannot speak to it. The matter is, it's over and mute. On the issue of public participation, someone went to a court and said that we should extend public participation by a day. Parliament complied. And so that matter, again, is mute. It's res judicata. It's already been pronounced on by a court, and we complied on it. In any case, you must also remember we have a 7-day timeline.
So the court can assess the extent of compliance.
The quantitative and the qualitative aspect of that will be for the court, not for anybody at this stage. And then also on the issue that we discussed about the conflicts, again, people make lofty allegations. The substantive speaker, someone raised that issue of bias at the beginning of the motion. And the speaker clearly quoted exactly what he said in that alleged forum. And the ruling was that actually he was not even referring at all. No, he was not referring at all. That the person agreed. The member who had raised it finally agreed that he wasn't referring. He didn't refer to the deputy president. But also, in my case, I am not just the deputy speaker. I am first a member of parliament for Uasin Gishu County. Okay. And that is why the law permits me to continue to remain as member of Uasin Gishu County, even though I'm Deputy Speaker. Those statements that I made as Member of Parliament for Uasin Gishu County. I did not make them when I was sitting on the Speaker's chair. When I'm sitting on the Speaker's chair, that is the time that if I make any statements, you can raise the bias at that stage. Right. And that is why the law permits me to debate on any motion, and I have a vote. The Speaker doesn't have a vote. So again, that's a very pedestrian interpretation of the role
so Deputy Speaker, tell me about this. So we saw the quantitative data being reported. What happened to the qualitative data? What Kenyans said in those public fora?
There's recordings. There's a Hansard.
So how was that assessed?
That the Hansard has been put in has also been put in. That's the various people who spoke and who said what. You know, Parliament records its information verbatim.
So my question
is all available, and it's part of what has been transmitted.
My question is, because what was reported to the floor is the quantitative data. How was qualitative reported? How was it assessed?
Again, it was even the quantitative was also reported in summary. So was the qualitative. Again, the speaker, because remember the motion was, we had a shortage of time in the motion, they made a summary. She also said that all the information is available, and that is what has been transmitted to the Senate. The Senate will have an opportunity to look at it and to proceed. And like we said, the impeachment process cannot be stopped by the courts. They have to wait for the process to be completed.
Okay.
Then thereafter, one can go to court to challenge the process, whether the process was done within the law and within the constitution. That is an avenue that is open. But for now, that process can only be challenged by the court.
All right. For the sake of the viewer, the quantitative data we're referring to is the forms that were filled, then they are counted to say that this much said they oppose the impeachment motion, this much support the motion, this much say otherwise. The qualitative is how Kenyans express themselves in words. How was it assessed by Parliament is the question I was asking to Deputy Speaker. But
and that will be answered by the court. If he challenges it in court, the court will be able to look at it, because the judges in the Supreme Court pronouncement and in the decision by the late Justice Majanja, God rest his soul, he actually gave guidelines on how to undertake public participation. That's why I say I am slow to get into other people's jobs.
All right.
And for our jurisprudence to grow is when there's an occurrence and something is presented to the courts. Like this is the first time that we're having an impeachment of a deputy president. So you cannot make the rules. I can't make the rules as I go along. Neither can counsel here, and neither can Daktari here, and neither can senator.
All right.
And that is why we have our courts as a last point of check. So
you agree that the deputy president can have his day?
Yes, as to question the process. Yes.
Not the merits.
Whether the process is already provided. Yeah. The process has already been provided by law that it is done by the National Assembly. It goes this manner, and then it goes to the to the Senate. After the Senate has completed its work, then at that time, if he feels that a certain part of the law was not followed during the process, you can challenge. That's available.
So we're waiting to look at the feedback. But Senator Manzo, so is the Senate up to their task to try all these allegations on their own merit?
Yes, and our standing orders provide that we'll vote. We'll vote, charge by charge, so that some will fail, or all of them may fail, or one may pass. But the most unfortunate bit of it is that finally is a vote, and then it's mobilized on party lines. And if parties don't leave their members free to make a free conscience, then the matter is likely to go in a different way. Finally, the Senate will decide as a vote. The Senate is very sensible. It has a lot of sensible senators. This is a political process. So, as I said, it is now a trial on the Senate. It's not trial on Gachagua, because each individual senator will also be on trial by Kenyans. How you argue, how you vote, that will also determine whether you will ever also come back to Senate. So it's a very tricky political situation. And that's why now many members of National Assembly can't go home. They are a hostage of their own decisions, of their own pride, of their own malice on the floor of the House, because the Kenyans also judge you. Because you see, Parliament is checked by Kenyans. And how you behave is what determines whether you'll ever serve Kenyans again. If you are really applying malice, you are not following the truth, then Kenyans are also there to rule, to judge.
Just 1 minute. I'd like 1 minute.
Let's see if we'll get that time. Interestingly, there's already conversation about succession of Rigathi Gachagua. We've seen some reports being posted. People also speaking for themselves on different platforms on the social media, saying how they've been committed to a service of the people. Lots of conversations going on.
To Ruto. How they've been committed to Ruto.
Let's take a look at the feedback that has come to us at Citizen TV Kenya. Asam Gituku, the hashtag to use is Citizen Daybreak. What you're saying this morning in regards to the two conversations about the public-private partnership, as well as the question about the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua. Now, Engineer Lazaro, you're saying that Gachagua's tribulations are mainly political. Political issues better be handled politically. Judicial process may not have much impact over this particular case. Agumba Steve, you're saying the impeachment has manifested itself to be political given the unfolding and behavior of both houses as regards to the haste by which it's being taken and the silence of the president. It's funny again that the DP now believes in the courts he had dismissed to save him. Chris Kantai, the level of hypocrisy in the Kenya Kwanza MPs is top-notch. Ruto disrespected the president during Uhuru's tenure, but no one impeached him. These MPs are taking Kenyans for a ride. Senator Siaya, you're campaigning again on daybreak. If only the MPs could redirect the energy, dedication and urgency they used to impeach the deputy president to solve Kenyan struggles that impact daily lives, would be a first world country. Okelo Mwalimu, by declaring confidence in the judiciary, an arm he vehemently criticized in the past, the truthful son of Ruguru is passing one clear message, that he sees and smells no justice in the Senate. Whether or not this strategy will help is a matter of wait and see. And that's the feedback this morning. Now, I have less than a minute to end. I share it between Dr. Komolo and Deputy Speaker. Please, 20 seconds, if you can.
Sam, let institutions established under the Constitution do their work. Let the Senate do its work of oversighting, in this case, National Assembly, and giving the Deputy President a fair chance and giving Kenyans a fair opportunity to understand the impeachment process and what due process is all about, and then the courts. Importantly, let our politicians also stop this business of being nice to the courts when it works for them. It is important that we leave the courts for what they are meant to be, independent third arm of the government that then helps people to process their grievances objectively. And I hope that the Deputy President will have his chance, and any other political leader who will obviously be facing issues later in life. Importantly, let the institutions work. And also, they need to stop attacking the media, because they also do that when it doesn't work for them.
Okay.
Yeah. I think what I just want to say is that all these matters that came to the culmination of impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua were brought upon by himself, by his own utterances. He, on several occasions, appeared on television, on radio, in churches, and so on, castigating his own boss. If he wants to tell the president something, he should tell him in confidence in their offices and not in public. That is part of what his arrogance and his demeanor is what has caused him this. That's why the Bible says, with humility comes greatness. With arrogance comes disgrace. This is exactly what has happened to him. And then here on the show, I would just to request you with great humility, Sam, is that I think you have to make sure that people don't come on the radio stations to make very lofty and very grave allegations against personalities without being able to substantiate. Honorable Manzo knows that if he made those same statements that he has made here in Parliament, he would be asked by the Speaker of the Senate to either substantiate and bring evidence, or retract.
I can substantiate
those, yeah. And similarly with counsel here, because you can get, I mean, I don't know, I think those people should sue you. You've just accused them of bribery without any, you've defamed.
I have the evidence.
Yes, then I'm saying the right thing to do is to go to DCI.
It's not DCI.
Sorry, I gave Senator Manzo the opportunity to clarify, to substantiate.
And he
did not.
So you should have stopped
Which you have to say that those are his views, not the views of Citizen TV.
Yes, thank you very much. I wanted you to say that.
And I think he'll have to deal with his own allegations.
Thank you.
Now, Okaj, 20 seconds.
Yes, thank you, Sam. I think constitutions grow by being tested. So this is a good opportunity where we can test the Constitution. It is also important for our political leaders to know that when it comes to decisions being made by parliamentarians, let them have the independence to make those decisions. Senator Manzo tells us he may not support that motion, but his party leader is the one who came and said, my coalition will not, or my party will not support. So we are not sure whether that is a decision or not. But the same will apply on the other side. Let it be independent so that the trial at the Senate will actually have meaning. Otherwise, it becomes a theater of the absurd.
Okay. Ooh, okay. You know that was a very big issue on the floor of the House, yeah? Let's not start another one. Asante sana, Senator Dan Manzo, Mheshimiwa Gladys Boss, Deputy Speaker. I almost called him Mheshimiwa Dr.
Thank you.
It's okay.
You almost
and Duncan Okaj, thank you so much for making time for us. Now, all the best, Senator Manzo, as you go to try the impeachment of the governor of Kericho, Dr. Eric Kimtai, and that will be happening starting this morning. And so much more laid out for the week. Up next is a Sporty Monday. The team will be here to review the action of the weekend, but also looking ahead into what is expected. My name is Sam Gituku. See you again some other time. Bye for now. Good day.